Hello, everyone. My name is Steve, and welcome back. We're having some weird echo issues, but thanks for your patience. So, we are here today to talk all things Obsidian Awakening with author Faye or Sienna Frost. Faye, thanks for coming by to chat all things Obsidian with you. I'm excited to talk to you about the book.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity because I don't think an author loves anything more than discussing her book with a reader.
Awesome. I'm sure people will start trickling in here in a second. But for anyone who hasn't read the book yet, can you give us like a non-spoiler, just kind of pitch for it?
Um, yes. Well, it's a book. Uh, I there's this blurb I've been asked to write to describe the whole book in the most ridiculous blurb ever, and I think it happens to be one that best explains what it is. And that one is actually life is full of shit in a fantasy without dragons, and that's what it is. Your Obsidian is fantasy with no magic, no dragons, no creatures whatsoever. It's more like historical fiction, but it's fiction. Everything is made up, uh, but mostly it's just about a bunch of people who's where fate has dealt them a really bad hand, and they just have to try to survive that somehow and pretty much live with it.
I really
That's
want, yeah.
what it's all about. It's human relationship, it's human nature, it's humanity in a nutshell, and they clash.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's a good. That's good. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit because I'm really impressed with the paperback version. So can you tell us how that all came to be? Because it's very. I have some pages tabbed, but it's all the drawings in it, and the presentation is really nice. And I
Thank
think,
you.
especially for a self-published book, people expect it to be, and we know better, but people expect it to be like not very well put together. But this book is above and beyond. In regards to presentation, it's very neat and organized and very sturdy, and it feels like you know it's nice to hold. So, how did that all come together?
uh, the I have the privilege of being a publisher already. So I've been publishing magazines, in-house magazines for my business. I run a pet supply business. I was doing the layout and everything for our in-house magazine for 20 years. So I have the software. I used InDesign for it, and I used to design magazines. So that's why you get those integrated photos and drawings into the text, which is not often seen in books, in fiction books. Usually it's just one page photo and then the text next. And I had this idea. I didn't even want to create a paperback really because I'm an e-reader. I don't I don't read I don't even read from paperbacks anymore. But my readers from Wattpad really want a physical book, and I wanted to give them something because they've read the book. Some people have read it twice, and I didn't want to make them buy something that's just the same as what they've had for free. And I wanted this to be a gift mainly for my readers, my existing readers at Wattpad. And yeah, so I thought, well, I have the program, I have the skill set to do this, and I wanted to deliver something different. And I took the time. It took a long time because when you do something like that, you have to do everything by hand. It's not automatic. I have to go through the images. I didn't illustrate them myself. They're royalty free images that I bought. But I think the most time consuming part was finding the right image to start the chapters because I wanted them to represent the emotions you're going to get from each. sort of like an intro music to the chapter, and that's the idea behind it. And then it's the layout. But this is possible at all because I've had the experience, I've had the program, and
Yeah.
it was fun. I love doing layouts anyway, so it was more fun than me throwing text together and just toss it out there. It turns out that people love the paperback. I didn't expect to sell more paperbacks now than ebooks, so that was a good decision. But yeah, it started out with me just wanting to give my fans something special.
Well, mission accomplished there. And
Yeah,
Tyler's here. Greetings. Yes, the paperback is amazing. I wish traditional publishers did interior artwork more.
true.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's lots to get to. When after I finished it, I had some notes written down, and then I went back to try and get some, try and get some questions and some of the major plot points together. And there's so much in this book. There's so much to talk about. So, first, the introduction I thought was a perfect way to start this book. I think it kind of sets the tone and it kind of lets you know what you're in for.
That was actually the seventh or something chapter in the book originally.
Hmm.
Really. And these two characters didn't even exist at first because I wanted to write a book about Hashim and Najari, and I just wrote, and then it just these guys just turn up around chapter 7, 8, and then I found out they have a story of their own. And it just went from there. And the original readers at Wattpad were reading those chapters, I think 7th or 8th chapter. And then when I was querying the book, we had to move around the chapters a little bit because if you want to hook the agents and everything, the first chapter has to be the strongest one.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got some. I discussed this with my readers, and it's weird because you would have to get to the end to know where to begin. I didn't know where to begin until I got to and it made sense because a few people said you ended with them, you should begin with them,
Hmm. Oh, makes
and
sense.
I've always thought it has to begin with Hashim because this is his book, but that made sense.
Yeah.
And it's sort of I love the suggestion because it sort of opens up, it wraps up everything very nicely. So that was a decision that was not mine.
I actually have some questions for you about that, but let's let everyone know that we'll be getting into spoilers. So if you haven't read the book, you know, don't keep watching. Come back and listen or watch later, and but don't spoil yourself on the story. So you read the book and you have feedback from your readers. How much do they change your process? Did you have something else in mind, and then your readers had feedback that you changed what you had planned originally?
No, uh, if anything, I add more chapters.
Hmm.
I don't change anything in the story that is against the way I do things. I'm a pantser, and everything. I think it's because I've been writing web novels and I post one chapter at a time, so it's not the same as people who've written the whole book, edited and everything, and then share. Because once you share a chapter on a website, it's been read. The story in my mind is set in stone. It's not
Hmm.
right to have a few hundred readers read it and then you change the story afterward. I don't do that. So I tread really carefully each chapter. It takes me a while to make sure that this is what the story has to be. This is how it happens. That I never change that,
Hmm.
and the future doesn't change anymore. of Lazura. I want to see this scene explained. I want to see the request I get most often is I want to see Hashim in Russia Week. Back then, his life before then as an assassin, because I didn't do that a lot in this book, so he didn't get to show off, and I ended up doing that as extra chapters. Some of those become extra chapters, sort of fillers that I short stories that I give to my readers. Some of them I take the opportunity to add to the future scene, sometimes as a flashback, sometimes on scenes that I wasn't going to go into detail about it. I go into detail because readers request that they want to see more of that scene, more of this character doing this. And those are the changes that I do.
And something that struck me pretty quickly in the book is the question of, would you rather live behind walls with security and little or limited freedom versus being free and being vulnerable or kind of fending for yourself and not having that certainty of, how you're going to eat, if you're going to survive or not. That was really kind of the for me throughout the book is the question of, what would you rather have? Would you trade freedom for security? Is kind of the is that something that you were playing with there?
Definitely, because I've always said this book was written because I've spent time with Mongolian nomads.
Mm.
And I've sort of had my eyes open when I was staying with them, because everything that I've known has just changed. My point of view was changed because when you, I mean, it's a living condition. We as city dwellers that depend on these health, safety, and convenience would find a nightmare. I tell people I lived with no electricity for 21 days, no plumbing, no modern toilet. It was a hole in the ground, and everyone was horrified. And actually, those 3 weeks was the best time of my life. It was the happiest time of my life. I was so carefree. I didn't want to leave. And even though I had to eat the same meal every day because practically that's all they have. And that was I figured that's also a good life. And they have this mindset where they don't know when what's gonna happen if you get sick out there. um, in the steppes. It's like an 8 hour horseback ride to the nearest town to get the doctor who probably doesn't have the medicine you need. And we came across a lot of dead people.
Hmm.
Actually, on the trip, some car crash that's been there for maybe a day or two because it's the steps. There's no road. Everyone takes different ways, and you can die out there without being ever discovered. And to them, that's okay. And I asked them, and they said, well, they some of them have tried to go live in the city, and they said they couldn't do it
Hmm.
because they couldn't live in this small um, house in this small room, go to work every day and have no say in when they want to work, where they want to work, because life in the steppes is more about they have their own choice because they're self-sustainable, right? They don't have to beg anybody, they don't have to work for anybody, and that means more to them. And I understood that, and it was, and to this day I wrote about it as two sides of the war, thinking differently, because the Black Desert is more like our society now. And I still can't decide. It's something I wanted readers to think about, and maybe hopefully feel fearless
Hmm.
about things not working out, or having those things taken away. It's not the end of the world. You can still be happy in these conditions there, but there's a price to everything. There's a price to luxury, to convenience. You're gonna have your freedom taken. If you want complete freedom, you're gonna have to go live like a nomad, live outside of the society. That I think that's one problem in the society that I want to address, because people are calling for freedom, but you live with other people. It's always going to be limited. You can't have that kind of freedom that the nomads have. When you live with other people, you got to go live in a cave somewhere.
Hmm.
And yeah, I think that's a problem I see in the society today, that people look for freedom, they want freedom, but they don't want the responsibility to the society that provide them the convenience. Yeah.
Well, one thing as you were talking, it reminded me of one of the tabs I have is
Wow.
on page 296. It was you couldn't count on people who barely had enough to eat, sacrifice for the greater good. You managed them, filled their purses with coins, sacrificed a few goats or people to keep them happy. Cruel, yes, but then again, the survival of all living things always relied on the ability to be cruel, had it not? That's something that and I think not only is the individual, but also you also play around with the other side of it, which is the cost of a civilization, the sacrifices that have to be made, and the sacrifices of leaders that leaders have to make to remain in power and to show, I guess, leadership, or to show that they're powerful. They're willing to go to those places to keep things in order.
Yeah. I think that's a less seen perspective for most people who have not led a bunch of people, because it has, it also has to do with the fact that I'm a business owner, and I have to take care of everything, my customers, my employees, and I also see the point of views of my employees, and they often have no idea what I
Mm,
have to go through, the hard decisions that I have to make. And sometimes when your decision doesn't agree with them, they find you evil,
yeah.
which is probably the same thing as when you see leaders in books and you find them evil. Sometimes and I find books that make leaders who are really, who have to rule an empire, always good, always making the right decision that everyone is happy about. That's not believable. That's not even possible.
No, it's not.
Because in our society, you have groups that oppose each other that you have to govern, and you give one group something, it's gonna contradict the other. So as a leader, you will always have to make that hard decision. You will always have to be evil in someone's eyes, and you're gonna
Hmm.
have to live with it. Otherwise, you cannot control anybody if you're just nice. In my opinion, um, that's a bad leader. You
Hmm.
have to. I don't know, but in the end, it has to do with you making the most people happy with the least cost
Yeah.
to the rest. You know.
There's a picture. As I was reading, I took a picture of one of the quotes. Is there's only now and what you do next that is how a leader is made and change is accomplished. It's having that short memory and just doing what you can and moving on, not dwelling on mistakes, because then you'll never get anything accomplished that way. And like you mentioned, is people being upset because of decisions you make, they don't understand how much goes into that. It's a whole different mindset, I think.
Yeah. I I wanted to see that in books, and I don't get those. I get It's more like my frustration going into this book as well, because I would read books and I would see them making everything look so easy, and they're not seeing this problem. It's These problems are never addressed, and I was at one point someone who was so worried about the past. I was locked up in there, and now I become someone else who just looks forward. Uh, it fixes more problems than just staying there.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
was something I wanted to share from my experience of having grown and happier and made everything better that way. Because it really, I mean, you can fret about what the mistakes you've made for a while, yeah, but only for a while.
Hmm.
And from then on, you just have to go forward.
I think that's part of I think part of the what makes the character so compelling too is that they just keep they have to keep going, even through all, and they go through a lot. But they find that strength to continue after all the things they've been through.
So
So
isn't that required for all of us, though?
mhm,
It is sort of a
yeah,
reminder to my readers as well, because this I said this is a book I want to leave for my children because I think they need the reminder that this is what it takes to survive in this world. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. There's some more quotes I want to get to, but first let's get to Dejari. I think Dejari, I'm guessing, is most people's favorite character, right?
No.
No, really? Oh, she's
It's
my
hard to
favorite.
say. It's hard to actually you are the first.
Really? Oh, I thought for sure as in, like there's a Dejari fan club
No.
already. Oh, okay.
I think the biggest it's Muradi with the
Hmm.
and Sahara. I mean the couple. A lot of I know a lot of people who read it for the couple and they actually request more of the chapters, and then I think Hashim comes second.
Hmm.
But actually, the Jari is loved. The Jari and the Surah, they're both loved. But if you're asking if most readers are reading it, like who most readers are reading it for, it's probably the couple.
Oh, hmm. I thought for sure.
And I want
I
this.
thought for sure.
I love hearing this because it means that all of my characters work for someone. I have this fear of when you write multiple POVs, people tell you, oh, you can't go for more than 3 or 5 MCs because everyone is just going to care about one or two. And I love hearing different readers say this is my favorite character and it's different from everybody else's, and it means, oh, okay, it works. They work for everybody, works for someone.
Hmm.
That's I love hearing that.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I thought for sure Dejari would be the the most beloved character. I thought for sure. But she's one of my favorite characters in fantasy. I think is safe to say. And she has a charm in the book. She has a charm that helps keep her calm. And I wonder, do you have a charm? Is that something that you have that you gave to her?
uh no, I don't, but I like symbols. Every book I write has a symbol, but also one of the most successful thing I've written is a fan fiction that lasted 7 years, and that was the most read work I've done. It's been translated like to 7 languages and shared
Wow.
everywhere. And that one has this kind of charm. I use the Cartier love necklace and key for the couple, and throughout the book, that was the one thing that held them together. It became a part of the relationship, the symbol, and readers love that. I love that concept, and I wanted to do that here in my original as well. So that's the idea of I want her to. I because I've done this before, and I see the importance of symbols like that in the relationship. It
Hmm.
can bring a lot out, create a lot of situations where you can tell whether they love each other that much. And
Hmm. A couple of comments. Bally is here, and also our friend Epic Tales. He's here to say hello, and he plans to read the book, so he just wanted to drop by and say hi.
that's I thank you.
And Tyler's here. He says I'm with Steve, and Dejari was my favorite from the first read, so I'm not alone. Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you. The Jerry is modeled off my own daughter. I
Oh,
always
really?
call her my real life Jari. She's an athlete. She inspired me. I actually, for real,
Mm,
because Annie, my daughter, is a golfer, and I've been through it with her for 5, 6 years, going through competition, losing, going down, and coming back up. And her spirit and focus about what she wants to be is what I gave to the Jari, because this is a girl who's knows what she wants, and she cannot be sidetracked.
yeah, I think.
I love that about her, about the Jari, because she's always so clear. This is my decision. I'm gonna wait. Nobody can pull me off this path, and that is going to be her downfall, sort of, in the future. Because you in life, you really can't. You
Hmm.
can't do that.
It's funny because I was the reason one of the reasons I really love Dajar is because of the expectation of her just to kind of you know just be a wife and have children and just because that's be her only purpose. And despite all of that and what she goes through, she's still determined and she's still strong and holds it together. And during during the and I was about about 200 pages in. I was like, well, it's not like too dark. And then when she gets assaulted, that's when I was like, oh, okay, this took this okay, okay, I see now. Um, but even through that, and that was I mean, that scene was so well done, and Hashim and what he went through during that moment, and he was there for her, and he it's almost like he was helping her through that moment and just being there for her, and he almost died in the process, but that was a very powerful scene, I thought.
That was one of the most controversial scene, because my readers got so mad at me, and because everybody at that point, everyone knew that she's modeled after my daughter, and then I was like, what did you do? How dare you? And I have readers who've read me twice, 3 times, and sometimes going back to reread before I release it, because they can't wait for the next chapter, and they said this is the one chapter that I will not reread. But then a lot of people call it um, beautiful brutality.
Mhm.
The decision, and a lot of people said that you shouldn't go into detail with those scenes. I felt that it was necessary. It's even more necessary for scenes like that to be shown that way. If you're gonna write about it, I think if I'm gonna write about it, I want people who read it to feel like this is an unforgivable
Mhm.
crime. It's not something that you write and you move on, and this is gonna stick with her forever. I hate it the most when writers go write that kind of scene and then just moves on. It doesn't, life doesn't go on the same way for people who have been through that kind
Mhm.
of thing. And yes, I dragging it over all the way to book two. It's probably gonna be there in book three. The
Mhm.
effects of it, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it also um, solidifies the relationship between the two of them in a way, because when two people go through that kind of trauma together, they're inseparable. They have this bond. I think that's the part where they bonded
Mhm.
the most, actually, because she's been through what he's been through and he understands it. I think that the most hurtful part about me was that he understands exactly what she's going through and he had to watch it.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I love writing hurtful scenes like that.
And Tyler commented that scene was very hard to read, but very well executed.
Thank you.
I think that's the only really the only way you can say it is it's very hard to read, but it's very well done. So,
It was
that's
hard to write and
mhm.
edit.
And I think you because I thought, like you had mentioned, they're inseparable now, but towards the end, I started to wonder, are they really inseparable? Is it what's going to happen here? Because I thought Dejari was going to, let him go, and she relieved him of his prom or his he
Yeah.
swore to protect her and to serve her and to be there for her. And I thought, well, maybe they won't be um, inseparable. So
No, I can tell
yeah.
you they will be, and it's gonna go on to book three, the most inseparable couple that will probably never be a proper couple
Hmm.
throughout the books. I especially in book two, you will see the dedication they have for each other even more. And I think the point is that the point of separating them is to show that they're inseparable.
Hmm. Yeah. And speaking of Hashim, his what struck me with his background and was that he just wanted to care for someone. I think there was one I've written down here. He wanted to care for someone without paying the price for it because he always had to pay a price for loving someone or for caring for someone, and that really was a really I thought it was really powerful, description of how he felt and what kind of what he's going through, the anger that he feels, and the kind of I don't want to say hopelessness, but that he just wants to be, and he never has had the chance to.
He's a he's a sad character who has never been able to make his own choices
Mm-hmm.
ever. It's always I think what is very powerful to me was the scene when he first met Nazar, and he said he's seen this guy before everywhere. Every time that he makes a choice, even to die, it's not possible. And I imagine that he wanted to die many times during his capture into slavery,
Mm-hmm.
what he's been through, and even that choice was not given to him. There's always someone who comes and offer him something, tell him something to live, to keep going, and then he'll get this. So there's always a price he has to pay for the choices he made. Everybody he loves dies,
Yeah.
was taken away from him, and the last one, which was Mara, which is the beginning of his chapter. Uh, he is actually the key to everything because that was the woman that he really loves, and he decided to walk away, and then she died because he walked away, and then a part of that was him wanting to fix that with the jari. He says it's not, but I think I don't know any of my characters. They just tell me these things as I write. But this is the funny part when I talk to my readers. I would always say I think this is this is how he feels, and then I don't know if it's gonna happen or not. But yeah, I know as much as you do.
So do the characters take on kind of a plan of their own sometimes, or do you kind of direct them in the right place, or
I
is it
don't.
just
I never
along for the
direct them.
ride?
No, no, I never direct them.
Hmm.
I every time I plan something, I think this is what's gonna happen. They say, nope, that's not how it happened, and it turns out to be a better story than I can write. I always say to my if I write a book, if I plan a book, my plot sucks. It
Hmm.
just turns out to be the most cliche thing and boring stuff, expected stuff. But when I let them take the wheel, they turn into different directions. And there were so many events like that that just changed the whole story. I actually wrote a girl for Nazar, a wife for him. That's when was planning. I even wrote excerpts about them first meeting, their conversations. I still have it on my hard drive. And she was supposed to be Baku's sister.
Hmm.
And then that turns out he's in love with the brother. And I'm like, what? And
Yeah.
I didn't find out, in that confrontation scene that he had with Baku, they were still enemies. I had no idea at that point until he walked into that tent and I found Baku in the tent, and I'm like, "What are you doing here?"
Well, I think I was more surprised than you were, but Jesus says, sounds like another great book to add to the collection. We'll need to rewatch this in the future after reading it. Thanks for putting this on my radar. Well, thanks for coming by.
Oh,
And
thank you.
yeah, that that. Well, first let me ask you about the hunt because I was curious where that idea came from. Was that a tradition that you read somewhere, or that was has actually happened, or where did that idea come from about having this like hunting ground and that tradition?
Um, Partly it's from Nadam Festival in Mongolia. I was there during the festival. That's the idea behind Raviani celebration that happens every month. The Diao that happens once a year, sort of like the Olympics for the warriors. What happened during Nadam in Mongolia is that every village, every settlement comes together once a year. Nadam is once a year, and they compete in archery, horse race, wrestling, all kinds of warrior sports, and then the winners go to the capital to compete in this like really big event. So it's inspired by that, and and by me watching the horse race
Hmm.
in the steppes. Yeah.
There was lots of tension during that when you start to hold your breath on when everybody starts coming onto the same battleground and start breaking those kind of traditions and there's just things you don't do and it's almost like they're kind of toying with each other and seeing how much they can get away with. So I thought that there's lots of tension. There's because I started to get you know sweaty palms and things when I was reading that part of it because it was kind of builds and builds and you're like no stop don't go over there but of course it's gonna happen.
I'm glad because that was one of my most favorite scenes to write as well. I didn't even know I was doing it, but my readers uh, called it a mafia showdown in historical context. I thought that was true, probably because I love mafia. But actually, my fan fiction was about mafias, Chinese, Russian mafias, and everything, and they had those kind of showdowns, and I love mafia movies and everything. I didn't know that I was doing it until my reader said, "Well, this is actually a mafia showdown because you have the same rules." Actually, when in those, in The Godfather and everything, there are things you cannot do. You cannot say people you cannot piss off, and hierarchies you have to watch out. And I don't think that's been played a lot in most fantasy books because usually we just go to the action part of it. But I think real life it's more complicated than that.
Oh yeah. Tyler said that I finished this on Sunday and I'm already starting a reread. The first couple of chapters are so good on reread. And I'll comment on that here in a second. The hunt was so good, I thought it was going to be a lot bloodier for some of our POV characters. Yeah. So speaking of the reread, when I was when I got home today, and I was just kind of like go to a few things, and I found myself just like rereading without realizing it. So I think there's a few reads in this one, and the hunt. I wasn't sure if to Tyler's point, I wasn't sure if it'd be a lot bloodier, but I knew you knew someone's not gonna have a good time after what happens.
It's an introduction, really. I want to just give a taste of Raviani. I didn't want to make it that because this is gonna be long. I can tell you,
Mm.
the series is gonna be long. I wanted to keep some of the climaxes later. That is also a decision that I made, but I think also it just feels like it's not the time yet. It's more like a build up. Actually, this whole book is actually a setup A lot of people say that, but I'm glad people are enjoying 160K setup. But it's required for you to truly enjoy the next book that's coming along. I have to solidify these relationships and their backstories before I move on to the real hurtful stuff, because it's not gonna hurt you as bad unless you've read this one. And that's the point of the setup.
So did you just say that you have to set up to get to the real hurtful stuff?
Well, yes.
I wonder what you have planned. I wonder what you have planned for us.
Well,
There's a horror.
the thing is, I love to cry over books, and I feel like I only get to love a character so much to cry when I lose them, when you give me time to get to know them every step of the way. That's why I love series. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like standalones are can be really good, but it's never given me that bond, that strong bond you have with a character, unless you go through a series of 5, 10, at least 3 books, and then in the end they stay with you for life because it's been, years. You've read them through years of your life, not a weekend. And that's what I wanted to do. I want readers to end up loving them that much. So it's slow in progress in a way. I try to add events that are, not boring, but if you see, like, the whole book is about war and the war hasn't happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am aware.
Well, there's lots of setup, but also I think this first book reminded me of Kings of Paradise by Richard Nell because you set the tone. The tone is set, so you know that bad things are going to happen. So I really like that about it, is that you once you set that tone and you have that, you throw it out there like anything can happen. That makes it so much more interesting because you don't know what's going to happen next. So
Yeah.
I love that about it. And there was another little mark I have here on this page. On page 207, guilt was always easier to live with than failure, just as it was always easier to turn a blind eye to things and blame someone else. That was something that I really love that line. I was having one of those days when I read that, it made me feel better. So
Well, I try to find reasons people do things a lot, and I feel that a lot of times me and a lot of people dwell in guilt. We love to stay there because it is easier to just blame ourselves, and sometimes even for attention. I suffered from insecurity for a long time. I know that sometimes I dwell in my guilt and bad stuff that happened because I wanted somebody to feel sorry for me, which
mhm.
does nothing, which is just gonna keep dragging you down. And it is harder to face that you failed and then move on. It's a lot harder. Yeah. But
Yeah, isn't it?
that's
Yeah,
also something I wanted to leave for my kids.
yeah. That's really something that's really important too. Is that it is easier, and you would think it'd be easier to just you know, but it's the opposite. It's not always that easy. So it's a I love that line. I thought that was great.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's
I'm being quoted. I love this.
a
Yeah, I was requested by readers a lot to compile them and release a book of all the quotes in Obsidian. I think that's what I'm going to do
hmm.
one day because there's been quite a few requests. Yeah.
There's another one that, and speaking of war and keeping keeping order is on page 311, um, and and because sometimes the only way to live with nightmares was to replace them with less traumatizing, newer ones to focus on.
It worked for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and at least a better nightmare than the ones you've been having. So that it's yeah. There's so many there's so many great. I take pictures when I read of pages and I go back later and mark them off. So I had a ton of pages marked.
That's what you do when you read from paperbacks. Because I
Hmm.
highlight these things when I read from my e-reader. Yeah, that's one of the things why I need to read from an e-reader because I love to keep all those notes from every book in just one in my hand.
Yeah,
I carry them everywhere every time I want to reread a passage that I really love. It's easy to find.
yeah. There's so many great lines, and I love that you have the quotes in the beginning of the chapter too, along with the artwork, because that also sets the tone for where we're going.
It's the idea from the doing magazines, how when articles just pick one quote from it and show off what it's about. I think that really pulls you in.
Yeah, it does. So I guess getting back to back to the hunt, Nazir and Baku. I'm probably gonna butcher everyone's name here, but I was really surprised when they ended up when they ended up having this relationship and they were lovers for so long. I after their showdown and after what happened, I was like, well, okay. so, so I can imagine how you felt when you wrote it.
Yeah, I didn't see that happen either. I was shocked. I was like, what happened to this girl? Now she has nobody. I gave her a name and the whole backstory and everything, and it was not used. But they end up becoming the maybe the second most beloved couple in Obsidian, really, and then a lot of readers just really love them, and I love that because they're all like guys and girls. They love this gay couple, and
Mm,
I feel like this is also done very little in fantasy. They sometimes show gay relationships, but not um they don't make it just another relationship.
right. Well, I
Kind of.
thought, yeah, and I have. Let me see if I can find it really quick. There was one oh on page 435. Nazir realized that he regretted many things, one of which was never telling Baku he would be the man who killed him. That's some setup right there.
Yeah, and it changes throughout. I didn't even know that it could change. It changed a little bit in book two, but it may come true again. It's a vision that I that he told me he had. I didn't plan it. Just one day I realized that he had this vision, and it was such a joy to imagine him going through that. And I realized later that's why he's been um, reluctant about staying in this relationship because he knows it's doomed from the start. Because that's one of the things with Nazar that I really wanted to write. Everybody writes an oracle like somebody who's gifted and privileged, and I feel it. I see it as a curse. I'm someone who doesn't go to fortune tellers because I feel like knowing the future is scary.
Yeah,
And just imagine if you know you're an oracle and you know all your visions have come true and you have to live with that. So that was the part where I said it feels like having lived his whole life when he was 10, when he was talking to the Jari. Because just imagine if you know what happened. Everybody said they want to know what happens, right?
yeah,
What's gonna happen in the future. They want to know. I don't want to know. I just imagine knowing. Life is pretty much meaningless, and especially if you know the bad stuff. If you know this person is gonna die when you're 30, this way,
yeah,
and that you have, and maybe like in 10 years, and that whole 10 years you have to live with it. And I think that's a curse that he
yeah,
knows. Just imagine Narza knowing everything. His mother's gonna die. Jari is gonna be assaulted. He actually see things that happen when he's not there, when he's not supposed to see, and knowing his future with his lover is doomed from the start. Do you? And that's a big question for that I want to leave to readers too. If you know that you're not gonna succeed at something, would you still do it?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
it reflects on it's perfect with Baku with his personality where he says he's not gonna run from a fight that he can't win because in the end at this age I realized life is all about the journey. It's not the end. You don't we don't know if we're gonna end up succeeding in life. You can't live like that. You gotta take what you can from life, right? So I try not to depend on hope that things are gonna end up well. And I think that's the most important message of this couple because they know if you know you're doomed, are you gonna still gonna live well, or are you gonna stay alone and suffer all your life and waste all that time just because you fear that it's not gonna end well? But the truth is that every day you have, if you gain happiness from life, counts.
Yeah, that's something that I wonder too, is because of course we see, like you said, we see oracles as, oh, they have this gift and it's that must be so great to know what's going to happen. And
Yeah,
then throughout the book I wondered, it's one of my notes here, is that, is it a blessing or a curse? Is it a, because it's a huge burden to know what's going to happen, or at least even have an idea. So yeah, I did think about that a lot. Would you want, would you want that? Would you want that ability to do that? I don't know if I would want to.
I no, definitely not me. I find him the most tragic character, one of the most tragic characters in Obsidian, because everyone is already living through this nightmare every day. He lives through it every day, plus knowing it in advance.
Yeah.
it's it's scary. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, Zahara one of the most beloved characters from your other readers? Really?
especially
Okay.
especially women.
Hmm. I thought
I
Dajari would be the.
it makes sense if you see the people want to see really strong females. I find her unreasonable. I find her prideful and reasonable. It was funny because there was one reader that pointed this out. A reader who also reads me many times, read it twice, three times, and he said, yeah, she's actually very pride, prideful. She's too proud. She's too arrogant, and she annoys him actually. And I said, well, you got that right, because most women who've read my book love Zara. They
Hmm.
think she's really strong, and because she's just this undefeatable woman who just can't imprison. You can imprison her, but you can bring her down. I mean, she doesn't do that, but I feel her biggest flaw is that, and in a way, the Jari is a stronger girl. I agree with you actually, and a better person.
Hmm.
And
Well,
they're going to meet.
hmm,
And
looking forward to that.
it's gonna be a fun showdown. I'm looking forward to writing these two Barogis meeting, like Tajari versus Zahara. What's gonna happen? I don't know. They may be best friends. They may try to strangle each other. That's gonna be fun.
We'll see where they take you with that one. And I think her choice, at first I thought she was going to be burned, I thought she's done for, and then at the last minute, of course she's not. She's saved. But the choice she makes at the end, because you think the ultimate revenge here is going to be her killing him, and but in fact it was, I'm going to, you're going to be under my thumb now. So I thought that was even. It was even. What's the what's the the best type of revenge after living like that for so long. So I thought
Well,
that was
I think I've
interesting.
I've said this before to you during our interview that I don't find death a curse, a bad thing. I find living worse. that's that's why I was thinking it's not, and it made sense because it's not enough. I think of what Zara would feel afterwards. She spent her whole life wanting revenge, and suddenly when he's gone, what's gonna happen? And deep down, you know that she loves him.
Yeah.
He tries not to. That was the hardest part of writing Zara. I have to make it. I have to convince readers that she has to say these things that she doesn't love him, but you have to feel it.
Yeah.
I love that challenge so much because I'm not allowed for her to ever admit it for the whole book, even for book two. But everybody feels that they're meant for each other, but they can't ever reach that point because they've both done things that they're unforgivable.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I yeah, that's the fun part about writing her. But I also feel that her life would be pretty empty. It's been tied to him, and it's a bond that even if she doesn't want it's like when you have like this enemy, right, that you've been fighting all your life, and then they die, and then your life is empty.
Yeah.
So
What
there's
do
a
you?
relationship going on, and then I wonder what she's gonna do with her life now. She's lost everything. She has nowhere to go back to. She spent her whole life fixed with this guy, and in the end, a part of that is not just for him to suffer, but it's also because she's in denial. She can't let this go.
Yeah. Well, her revenge and her hate for him became part of her identity, and so
Yeah, yeah,
Tyler said, "I don't know that I'd want to be Nazir, Jajari, or Zahara because of all the expectations they have set in place for them."
yeah.
That's a good point.
I yeah. I feel like, especially Dajari, the part that I wanted to write about her was her arranged marriage, because you only see, especially in, probably more so in Western fiction, because you guys value individual freedom above other things. And for us, I think it has to do with my Asian heritage as well, because it's very common here for people to go into arranged marriage for the family, for the good of the family. I've had uh, babysitters, nannies, who had to go back to marry a guy they've never known because that saves their rice fields and families and stuff. And it's pretty common here. It's not that bad. It depends on, well, really, because you will meet a lot of couples who've gone into arranged marriage, and then they live happier than sometimes couples that made their own choices, and
Mm.
they become a friend too sometimes. But necessities um, force them into that. And I know a lot of girls who are willing to do that for their family. They value that above the community, the family, their responsibility to other people
Mm.
more than their own personal freedom. So I wanted to show that part of the world, uh, that way of thinking too, that it's not as horrible, or it doesn't mean that she's weak, or she's not, that she doesn't run away, or that she doesn't fight, because all you see are girls who fight arranged marriages and run away. And that was one part in the book that I really wanted to write about, that I did write about, was when Baku said their women are not raised to be that irresponsible, because your choices affect the whole tribe. So you can't a princess that runs away from arranged marriage where that's made to secure the whole kingdom or the tribe, the whole community. You do that, people go to war. That's on your hands.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
mean, there's a price to the privilege that you have to pay. If you were born into a family where you are powerful, and these decisions are done to strengthen the community, sometimes you make that sacrifices. And I wanted to show the world a girl who is bigger than herself,
Yeah. I
and
think.
that's the Jari. She is not just she's not running from it, she's actually running towards it. And she's in book 2, you're gonna see her, she's actually gonna be active in picking a husband, and that was like the most beloved scenes. I'm surprised actually, but I
Hmm.
want to show this in a new light, because she's made the decision that she has to marry for her tribe, for the White Desert. And well, in that case, I'm gonna pick. I'm gonna have my pick. And this is a bit of a spoiler because the guy she was interviewing, when she was interviewing him, to see if he would be suitable, as a husband. And she was asking him all sorts of questions, like, how many horses do you have? How many bows and arrows and camels? And because I'm marrying you for your assets. And she makes notes and stuff. And the guy was wondering if she was gonna check his teeth. And people were thinking, oh, she's going to be abused when she marries in bed. This hasn't happened yet, but I feel like, no, she's going to um, have like really high expectations, and her husband is whoever marries her is going to suffer.
Yeah.
And he's going to dictate how he does things.
Yeah. I don't think Jazari would be. Yeah. I don't think she'd be. Yeah. She would take control. I think of pretty much everything.
And I like that. I like to see that in strong female leads.
Mhm.
I There's a point to not making my female leads a full warrior. I feel like women, especially Zara, she doesn't know how to fight. She's in
Mhm.
prison even. She's a slave. And oops, my cats. Uh, and she is probably the most powerful figure in Obsidian. She
Mhm.
controls how things turn out. I mean, you can hold power, you can be a really strong person without knowing how to fight. And I feel like that should be done more in fiction, because not a lot of us can learn how to fight, or that is not strength, in my
Mhm.
opinion. Every time you talk of strong female leads these days, you see a woman with a sword or something, or guns, and and I feel like that's not a strong female. Strong females are mothers.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like mothers that make really hard decisions, and manage the entire household while holding 3 kids and one between her legs, and a spatula in the next, and manages all that. That's a really strong female.
Yeah. Tyler said, "I never thought Dejari was running away from her
Yes,
responsibilities." Yeah,
that's not her.
yeah,
Yeah.
never got that. Never got that impression. And I think the arranged marriage wasn't something that she was. I didn't ever see it as something she was dreading. I just thought it was something that happens. It's just like inevitable. It was an accepted event that's going to happen in her life. It's something that would just happen. So Dio was another character that I really liked, and his relationship and his affection for Hashim was, you wondered what that was all about the whole time. Is you wondered what his intentions were, what he was, because he seemed very schemy to me. So you always wonder what he was up to. Like he had the pelt delivered as a gift before, knowing he's going to be there, and he wanted to kind of set the tone there. So he's very he's another one who you have to keep a close eye on.
He's a mysterious character to me.
Hmm.
Throughout this book, everybody asks me like, "Who is he? Who is he? What does he want?" And I always say, "I don't know." I really don't know because I don't plan my books, and these things just happen. This is what they say. This is what they do, and it's become clearer to me in book two. It's explained more.
Hmm.
I about his origin. Very few people, even people who have read me many times, didn't pick up the crumbs that I left about who he is.
Hmm.
Um, I might as well say it. It's the color of his eyes that is the clue to everything. But it doesn't explain it all. But it becomes clear in book two who he is, and once you know a little bit of his background, you can guess a little bit more of what he wants. But his methods, he's a master schemer, so he plans everything from the very beginning. And you will be dropped bits and pieces of hints that tells you that's all planned. Something that happened in book one that was planned as well.
Hmm.
And yeah, but even right now in book two, at maybe 75% in, I'm just guessing because I don't plan, so I don't know. But I feel like this is like about 70%. I'm almost there, and yeah, I would say I know about 50% of what he wants. It
Hmm.
may turn out to be something I don't expect. But I love discussing about D with my readers because we all have different hypotheses.
Yeah, he's very very interesting. You wonder what his he's because he's always moving places. Always moving pieces around.
He's his fate.
Hmm.
He is. And so there are readers who say, "Well, he a god?"
Hmm.
And I'm like, I don't know, maybe. Because in the end, he's the one who I feel like he's always the one who's above everybody else and moving the piece, moving everyone else on this big board. He's a side character, but above, he's looking at everyone like he's, chess pieces that he's
Yeah.
moving them, and he has abilities that I've hinted a lot. That he also has visions, maybe,
Hmm.
of things, and he's not like Nazar in the way that he's manipulative. He's more manipulative. So if he has a vision, he's gonna use it to manipulate people, whereas Nasser just goes with the flows. But he's a mastermind, and the third book will be about him. That's as far as I know. It's a gut feeling. The second book is about Lasura. Actually,
Hmm.
it's Lasura's book, and I feel like the third book is going to be when D really goes into action and shows its control. You know, reveals us all his plan that he's been doing this thing all along, and what things I don't know yet. That is just a hunch. And uh, actually, I wanted to at one point I wanted to rename the books. I will have to redo the covers and everything if I do this. But the first book, you could call it the Silver Sparrow,
Hmm.
which is more or less Hashim's, and the second one is the Lost Prince, which is more focused on Lasura and his role in it, because he's also a really important character towards the end. It's going to bring everything together. And the last book is the Red Mamba, which is Dee's alias. Actually, when he was an assassin, you'll see more of these in book two. It may
Hmm.
be just three books. I'm not sure. Maybe I could end it in three and then do a spin-off. I'm guessing everything.
Yeah. If there's stories are to be told, and speaking of Osura, he's I really love that he was just like, screw this, I'm leaving.
Important, and he's a comic relief in book two.
Hmm.
Actually, I've had requests to rewrite the entire series in his point of view.
Really?
Yeah, he really shines in book two. I'm enjoying him so much. I never gotten a chance to get this close to him in book one, and then when I started writing him in book two, things started coming out, and I'm like, dude, you're cool, and my readers love him. And I was like, wow, can you rewrite this entire series in his point of view? And I felt like I would have been picked up by Trad Published if I had done that. Because it's gonna be this funny, whiny, sarcastic character talking, and I think that's something most people enjoy immediately without
Yeah.
background information.
Well, it's funny you mention that because her when Dajari and Hashim talk at the end, that was one of my favorite scenes. I've seen those two, meet up together and have that discussion they had, and I'm guessing we'll get more about Eli eventually.
I hope so. He wasn't planned, he just popped up. But I feel like there's a big history to that, and
Mm.
maybe that's a possible spin off. Well, the first spin-off that I promised my reader to do is Muradi's background from when he was a young age. That was the most requested spin-off that many readers even told me to stop the main series right now, and can we have that, please?
Really?
Yeah, because that would take you back to when he was young, what happened in that prison, and his relationship, his first relationship with Dee, and Jerem, which is one of the characters that a lot of people miss, and him and Zahara as well in
Mm.
the early stage, which is something that the fans of the couple really want to see their interactions back then a
Yeah.
lot. So yeah,
It's funny you mention that. And talking about D, um, he has a quote towards the end, page 453. He said, "There's a monster in that boy." So you makes you wonder what's going on there. That's the
that's a
plot thickens.
clue for book two. Uh, this is a big deal in book two because the monster is coming out.
Hmm.
So you will see the new Hashim, and as of this point, he has maybe four names now.
He has a few, yeah.
There is his real name, which has never been mentioned before in book one.
Hmm.
The name before he was captured. His identity before then, because he's given a new name, which is Hashim. With and there's the first name before he became the slave, and then his slave name, then his alias, which is the Silver Sparrow, and the new name they're giving him because now he has to go under a new identity. So yeah, right now he has four names, and it's become really tricky because I have to, when I write the thought process of when you change names, I'm like, so what does he call himself? And that was one of the hardest part I have to write around because when you have several names, what do you call yourself?
Yeah, I guess whatever you're feeling like that day, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah, I guess you can just pick whatever you want.
yeah,
And the assassination attempt and the assassins was another great scene. That whole the way that all came together towards the end was really fun to read.
yeah. I'd love to see that on screen.
Yeah, it's very cinematic.
Yeah, towards the end, that was the part that was really easy and quick to write.
Hmm.
I think I was releasing a chapter every week because I
Wow.
saw it so clearly. Yeah, the Hans was a part where I could release a chapter every week as well. Some
Hmm.
of the parts just comes and you see everything that happens so quickly, and other times I have to sit them down and they're not talking to me, and then I have to wait a week, and then they started talking, and then, oh, it's not this guy that wants to talk, it's another one. That's how I choose point of views. It's like it's not even a choice to me. I talk to them, and then whoever talks to me gets written.
So once you write all the different once the characters take you on this journey and you write their stories, how do you keep track of everybody and of where they've been and who they've talked to before and who they haven't, or how do you keep track of everyone?
I reread. I think that's a part why I name chapters. That's the reason why I name chapters, because it's for me to go back and check, because I hate planning. I hate character sheets. I hate timelines. I don't organize. I hate organizing. I wrote this book out of just one name sheet, just a tick off that I've already used this name. When I find good names, I type it into this notepad. Yeah, because I need lots of names. It's a big cast, and then when I already use this name, I put a little mark on it. Okay, this is this guy, and that's about it. And when I need to find something, I go back and reread those parts that's related, and then I write. It takes longer, but I hate organizing, so I don't have those big charts.
You have a big wall full of strings and pictures and stuff.
No,
Yeah.
no. People think I do that because it's a book with a big cast and a lot of plots, things going on, and backstories everywhere. But yeah, I do it the hard way. I reread,
Hmm.
which
And
is actually really good in a way, because I pick up what I've forgotten to write about, the details that I didn't write. When you reread, you see those
oh,
things. It becomes clearer where you're going as well, because you're tying loose ends as I go. I This is the way I pants. I go
hmm.
back and look at what I've written, and I write the next chapter based on what has happened, and that way you don't get a lot of plot holes.
Hmm.
Because every new thing you write, I never jump toward a goal. When you jump toward a goal, that's where a plot hole happens, because you're missing the connection and you're filling in the middle, right? But I don't do that. I write from the past. I go back to the past. I reread those chapters, and I find, okay, well, if since that happened, this has to happen, and it's built on top of each other that way. So plot holes is not so much of a problem for me, and I don't need those notes because I go back and find them anyway.
Hmm. And I'd have a question for you about the names. Something that one of your readers brought up on Twitter. But Tyler says, please don't change the titles away from the Obsidian theme.
Noted. I probably won't. Yeah, in the end, that was just an idea, because I was looking at the books like, oh, and the thing about this also is because people keep thinking this is gonna be another cliche uh, title, because the title is like everyone calls it things obsidian because of its color black.
Hmm.
I call it that because of its property that you need to break it first, because obsidian breaks sharp, right? And then it really symbolizes these characters really well, because they've all been broken into weapons, and that's why its name, it's a lot deeper than that. But most people, upon seeing the title, feel like this is a cheap um, obvious cliche title that doesn't mean anything. Well,
Yeah.
it means a lot if you look at it that way, but most people don't think about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in a way, I may, and it probably fits, because most of these characters are misunderstood a
Hmm.
lot. Maybe it's appropriate that my title is also misunderstood. Oh
Well, there's a user on Twitter that I can pull up the name. I give
yeah,
them
yeah.
credit, but it gave me some chills because some of the names that you used had other other meanings in history.
Yeah, that freaked me out because I didn't know, and that was spot on.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the things why I say writing this is kind of scary to me. I For other books that this doesn't happen a lot. This is why this is the I've written a lot of books in the past 30 years. I've only just shared this one and published this one because I feel like this is something else. This is my whole life's, masterpiece sort of. This is the book that I've been meaning to write. And a lot of these things happen. I would go back and find even words I don't know the meaning of sometimes. I don't know where that came from, and passages I don't remember writing,
Hmm.
and names that happen so many times. But I think with Baku, it's the most spot on um, coincidence that was really scary because I really just got his name off like a baby name website or something. It just feels like this guy is gonna be called this. It fits him. And there's another Nepali reader
Mm-hmm.
who was going through my book on Wattpad, and I think there was maybe 5 or 6 times that she said this is, and I picked um, names of Indian and Nepali names of baby names website as well without even looking up the meaning. I just like the sound of it, and then I used it, and then yeah, and she pointed that out that a lot of the names actually means has this perfect meaning for my character
Hmm.
in her language. I thought
Isn't
that
that
was
crazy? Yeah.
yeah, it
Yeah.
is. It is. It feels like, but there are those times when you name a character and you see the character and you feel like this is it.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen for everyone, but sometimes, and that's scary.
Yeah, it was really weird.
Yeah.
So, when can we expect book two? Um,
I don't know. I can tell you it's 75%. I have a hunch it's 75% done. Um, but the way I write is I don't write anything down unless I'm 100% sure that this is it, because that just takes me off the wrong path and the story fails. So sometimes it can be weeks or months until I get the new chapter done. If I don't feel it, I don't write it. But I think I have a good feeling that this should be done within this year because it's close.
okay.
But it's getting a lot more difficult to write. You'll see why in book two it gets
Mm.
more complicated. It requires a lot more skills from me to write because of the the monster part as well. I mean I can spoil a little bit, but that he has a double personality,
Hmm.
similar to Ruka, but not quite in a different way. And that
Hmm.
was one of the things I praised Richard Nell about as well. That double personality transition was done really well. I love that. And but this situation with Hashim, it's more difficult because he's still the same guy, and he switches back and forth. It's more in a more realistic way, and I had to study people with double personality and their
Hmm.
transitions and what happens in their heads. That's really difficult to write, and I have to edit a lot to bring that out in the right way. Yeah.
Hmm. Taylor had a comment. The theme of Obsidian is very apparent from the first page, so it's not lost on
Yay!
everyone. Yeah, so it's not lost on everyone. Taylor also says, "I love the short, quick chapters you wrote, and how there were several of them for one character in a row."
um, yeah, short, quick chapters. I mean, like the fillers. They,
Yeah, I think it's like like Malazan, there's reading trying to read that series now, and the chapters are so long. Some of the chapters are really really long, and it confuses me when the chapters are so long and it
Ah,
jumps so many
yeah,
places in one chapter. So having the chapters kind of separate and shorter helps, at least helps readers like me keep up because I'm not the smartest, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, so I need some help sometimes.
I this is thanks to Wattpad though. I'm a web novel writer. I've been writing chapters by chapters, and readers expect them in a timely manner. So I don't. If I do really long chapters, it's gonna take a while for me to post. So a part of that, and one of the rules of getting reads on Wattpad is that you have to post every week.
Hmm.
And readers, because you're reading on screen, it's difficult. It's more difficult to keep track of where you are. So um, the recommended length is around 2K to 3K. I
Oh.
go up to 5K sometimes in some chapters. So sometimes that's the point where I stop and I post so that readers can have something to read this week or this month. But I do try to wrap it up with, it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. If you're, I don't, I'm not a writer who goes for an entire book structure. I don't like structures in books, but I do that a bit in chapters. So I want to give readers something important every chapter, and it becomes a really good practice because I end up never writing something useless or those transition scenes that
Hmm.
nobody wants to write and nobody wants to read. I mean, seriously, that's one of the advice that I give new writers. You don't have to write them actually if you don't want to read, if you don't want to write it, because that's just, readers don't want to read it either. If you don't want to write it, just you can just write the main point. So I kind of cram that up in a chapter, and then it gives me an opportunity to move to a new character, what's happening elsewhere quicker, and then you get, you know I've been told that it's jagged, you know um that I move, that some people don't like it when I
Hmm.
jump from point of views to point of views, but I think you and a lot of people who've read epic fantasies with multi POVs a lot are used to that. But people who are not used to it find it jarring
Hmm.
at first until you get used to it and towards the end. But at first, I got rejected for that,
Really?
for for yeah,
Hmm.
for unnecessary jumping of POVs. It's not a POV jump within the chapter, but I think she feels that still wants to read about this character a little bit more, like in the long sequence, and then I move to the next, and I don't want to do that because I want, how like Chinese drama and everything, they have three stories going along all at once and then it joins together. I wanted to write a book like that. I want readers to care about everybody all at once, and I wanted to see if I could do that. Like if I can skip this point of view, go to another, and then readers are not going to skip that one either. Because it's a challenge in a way, and
Hmm.
I think it works for Wattpad in a way, because when you write, it's actually more difficult to write on Wattpad than writing a whole book, because you have to keep, because your readers is gonna quit at any time that it gets boring. It's harder to grab attention of free readers because they haven't paid for it
Hmm.
and they have no obligation whatsoever to continue reading you. As soon as it gets boring, they stop. So in a way that forces me to keep them wanting the next chapter. So I withhold some of the events from this point of view, and I stuff in another as and make it as interesting goes. That's why it jumps around. Some people don't like it. I love it, and in a way, um, the chapters have been moved so much. You would not know this if you haven't been reading me on Wattpad because I read you and you can rearrange them, and this is why I use Scrivener because it allows you to just move chapters really easily. Yeah, because you can. For my book, you can, and this is also one of the things that I really wanted to do at one time if I ever lived to that point. Is to this is important. It's to split the point of views
Hmm.
into two books, one with the white desert and one from the black desert. It's an experiment I wanted to see. So what if I give you only the point of views from the black desert, and then you will see all these guys as protags now,
Yeah.
and then you go read the other book, the white book, and then you see them as antag. And there's a huge message in that that I really wanted to do, and I've been writing these chapters with that in mind, that you have to be able to split those two point of views from between black and white, and they both sides will have their protags. The antags will become protags immediately, like
Hmm.
that, and that's gonna make you look at your enemies differently, and I hope that will make people judge others, um, not so soon,
Yeah.
because when you see something like that, I hope people think twice before they do that, and that's one thing that I really wanted to do because of the problems in the society today that I see. And there's nothing's gonna be clearer than that if you have a black book and a white book
Yeah.
from the opposite sides, and then you'll have fans for both. And then when you jump to read the other book, and it's like, this is not what I thought. They're
Yeah.
the evil ones.
That'd be really neat to use that as an experiment.
Yeah, and
It's a
I
great
don't
idea
think it has been done, has it?
that I know
That
of.
would be something totally new.
Hmm.
And I'd love to see readers go like, did you read the white or the black?
What- and you
And
see
they're
what
gonna fight like hell because if they read only one.
that's a yeah, that's really yeah, I'd love to see that. And Tyler said they flow really well. The chapters do, and I've read a lot of fantasy, but I think I still get confused with too many POVs. If it jumps too much, then I get lost. But I don't ever feel like I was lost with this one at all. I felt like I knew everyone pretty well, and the names being different helps too, because when the names are very similar, it's harder to keep track of who's who.
Oh, I'm glad.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's one of the hardest things to do with POVs, right?
yeah,
Keeping
yeah,
readers, you know, with you on every point of views and not confuse them. When you have like a really big world and rules and names and made up names, I get those comments sometimes that it gets confusing at first, and then you have to decide whether you're gonna info dump this or sprinkle. So this is what I want to ask. Did you feel like there was a big dump anywhere?
no, no, I didn't ever. There's been other books and I have felt like that, and yeah, there's been other books that I have felt like that, but no, I didn't feel it. I thought it flowed really well, and um, and some people like info dumps. Some people actually think they're good, but I'm not one of those people. But no, I never felt that way.
Yeah, I like them. That's why I worry.
Oh, okay. No. Yeah, I know some people do, and I was kind of surprised because yeah,
I'm not mine, so I could dump very easily, and I'm not sure. I haven't had problems. Yeah, I haven't had people telling me that I do that. But yeah,
hmm,
I wonder.
yeah, there has
Everything
been yeah, there's yeah,
yeah.
there's
Okay.
other books who do that a lot, but I never felt like anything was. I thought it rolled out pretty. You learn about it as we go through the book, not just like big dumps. So no, I didn't feel that way at all.
Do you think you need a vocabulary list at the end? Because I have
Uh,
that, but I didn't uh, edit it and put it in the main book at
mm,
this point.
no, I think
I don't think so, right?
no. The only thing I looked for that because when I was writing my notes for this, I was writing down character names and I was looking for character names and how to spell each one. That's the only thing I think is like a character list, but that's the only thing I could think of.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the only thing because um, just to because I was just making sure I had the names right. So that, but that was the only thing I looked for that I was curious about. But other than that, I know
I
some
knew
people
that.
enjoy maps, but
I misspelled that names too.
yeah, yeah, some of them are
Also
some
can't
of them are
remember
long. Yeah,
because you have father's name and mother's name attached to their first names as well,
yeah.
and I sometimes have to go back and look and think I don't remember your mom's name actually. That's the trickiest part because when I name somebody, I have to make up two names, not just one. So it's extra work, but I like that, and I like the fact that girls take their mother's name and guys take their father's name. Um,
Hmm,
I don't think I've seen that either. So,
hmm.
and I feel like, why should girls take father's name?
Yeah, yeah, I didn't realize that. Makes sense.
Yeah, that's one of the part I wanna do to change like the presence of uh, uh, gay and being handicapped and everything. I don't want that to matter
Hmm,
in this world. I want a setting where everyone is just seen as humans and you're free to just love anybody you want. Like, who has time to care? I mean,
hmm,
technically, when you think about it, when you live in a world like Obsidian where life is that hard, you don't actually have time to mind other people's business.
no, you don't have time for that. You have to survive.
It's like, oh, he likes a guy, so I got my battles to fight. It's not my problem. I don't have time for your problem to judge. And I feel like people who do are kind of privileged in a
Hmm,
way
yeah, yeah, yeah.
because
There's no time on your
you
hands.
gotta have time to go around and judge people and think this is what you should do. I mean, it's enough that you deal with your problems, and and in a way, I feel like that makes sense for my world,
Hmm,
and also because they worship a goddess,
yeah,
and that changes the game.
yeah, and
That's something that I don't see a lot for cultures as well. Most of them worship like a
yeah.
male deity is like the biggest one, and I wanted that to change, and I think that changes the female roles. I think religion has a huge role in shaping our views of women and men because
Hmm,
when you put a god as male, that's absolute. Now that men is gonna be bigger and has the final word in everything. When you worship a goddess, you see a women in her image,
hmm, hmm,
and that's why the women of the White Desert have power. You'll see this in book two because Sitara, the capital, is ruled by a bunch of Barawis and oracles. That is gonna be a huge mess. It's like everybody I tell it's like this. It's ruled by six Barawis, six women rule this city. That's gonna be chaos. Imagine six Saharas in the Dari
oh man, that's gonna be
going
a fun
at
one.
each other's throat, and there's um, a big thing about the book two is when the White Desert becomes the bad side. You see the dirt. They're the protag side on the first book, and then I'll show you their dirt
Hmm,
in book two. And actually, Sitara is much more corrupted than the Black Tower. The White Tower is worse, and there's more problems because and I love this. I didn't even think about that at first because I just created this secret city that only Barrows and oracles can enter,
Mm-hmm.
and white warriors, right? And then I started writing book two, and I realized, well, what happened to children born in the city who are not Barrows or oracles? Because in my
Yeah.
world, it's not magical. It still follows the same uh, natural genes kind of thing. So you can actually pair Barrows and oracles, the old silver hair, and then still have black haired boy born. So what happens to those kids? And they become garbage of the city. They're abandoned, and yeah, and that's the whole new problem in the city that I really enjoyed writing. There's a new character who is called it's called an Oran in the new book, and there are a bunch of people who are Orans who are suffering in that city, going through similar things that Hashim goes through by the hands of people of the white that said, whom you've been thinking are the good people. And in a way, even in book one, and this is what people don't realize, they sort people out by bloodlines and the color of their hair. I'm surprised that not a lot of people pick that up.
Hmm.
And you're thinking that these are like really good people and everything, but they're actually very discriminating
Mm-hmm.
in a way. They actually sort people by bloodline and their appearances, and that hierarchy is very clear. It's super clear in Sitara. You it's a caste system over there that I also want to address. And yeah, but I'm surprised that this is probably the problem with discrimination and racism as a whole, because people don't realize
Yeah.
what they're doing.
Yeah.
And eventually I will make themselves realize that is who they are as well, for the white desert, because they've always thought they were just. This is what Muradi said uh, earlier, that you think I'm evil. I mean, what have you done? And we don't think about that sometimes.
No, we don't.
That's the parts I'm really looking forward to writing. Because I don't like, I hate the idea of good versus evil, white and black, and I name those deserts white and black as to symbolize that people like to do these things,
Mm-hmm.
but it's actually more gray than that.
So Tyler had a comment. So I'm gonna butcher these names. So just you can laugh at me if you want to. So Zain and Salar Murandi are some of the best written leaders I've read. Please excuse the spelling if I got them wrong.
I get them wrong too. Don't worry.
So yeah, so I'm sure I misspelled them a bunch of times too. But yeah, they are some great. I think they're not only them as leaders, but to Tyler's point, is just the price that they pay to be the leader. Kind of like what we talked about earlier is the burden they carry to be a leader.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like I said, I want to show that a lot more, and they're like the same guy from different sides. And a part of writing Zion was that I wanted to show that he's also a monster. He's as big a monster, maybe a bigger one.
Mm-hmm.
And there is also a chapter in book two called "Monster Bigger Than Zion," which is about his trainer, his sensei, sort of regretting that he's created this monster who was actually burning villages and stuff, and that was his mistake. Zion was a mistake, and in but still he remains a respectable leader, a well beloved character. I wanted to show that side for both Muradi and Zion, that because when we see only the results of what people do, we judge them really quickly that they must be horrible. But I think for everybody, there's a side to them that is good,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, people, we are all good to somebody we love, right?
I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, true. I hope so. But I want to show these evil people in a different light. I wanted to show Muradi, who is first shown as this horrible, toxic guy, in a different light. And then I wanted to show Zion, who is this great, good daddy, nice guy, in a different light. He's also done that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean that he can't be a good father
Mm.
to them. I don't know if he's good. Some people find him really horrible, but I feel like he is a good father, a hard one, and he definitely is a good husband
Mm.
who really, really loves his wife. And like that chapter that I mentioned in the end, that is probably what he's gonna die being known for to himself, is as her husband, not this big leader. Yeah. So there are different sides to history that I think is also lost, that I want to tell. I want to tell that kind of tale of humanity. So the whole book is not so much about what happens. It's not about the plot. It's about humans, all aspects of their lives and their go through.
Mm.
And I really like morally gray. I don't even think it's gray. It's just like humans, right? We all have flaws. We have
Yeah.
different sides. We have the evil sides. We have our good sides, and all of the sides have to be shown for you to know somebody. And I want readers to be able to love a character with all their flaws. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I have comments from readers who actually say Muradi is actually the leader that we need, probably the best one. And towards the end, a lot of people really, really love him. And I've had a reader who was in the middle of the book on Wattpad that mentioned him with the word toxic, but he's like this toxic guy, and there was a big fight going on.
Really?
Yeah, because everyone is who has read the whole book was like, no, he is not toxic. He's this and that, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, but he is toxic. But he's also good, and there are a lot of things he mentioned that I think it's worth mentioning, especially when he was going into um, the reasons he killed his sons. And it's like, does it make him more of a monster if he killed his sons and not someone else's?
Yeah.
When they do the same wrongs. I mean, to be fair, you've got to be willing to kill your own kid if you really want to be fair. If you're that hard of a man, if you put leadership of a country first, then I feel like that's fair. And
Yeah.
he has to make that sacrifice. And the part that doesn't make him a monster is because it is still a sacrifice. It hurts, but he's decided to do that for the greater good. So in a way, that makes him the best leader that we need for a lot of people who looks at it from that direction. As a person, to know, to love, as a friend, he's horrible. But maybe as a leader, that is what we need. Someone that fair,
Hmm.
that willing to sacrifice for everything, you know, for the greater
Yeah. That
good.
was, yeah. That's another thing that you that touched on too is you know, what if he decided to not kill his sons? What would that end? What would that cost be for that? And he,
Yeah,
so yeah,
yeah,
some
because I don't
powerful
think
stuff.
you lose control over your own people when you pick, you know, sides based on your relationship. That was
Mm.
part of the reason why he also feels like he always needed to kill Sahara, because he loves her. She has to go. She's in the way. She messes with his decisions, and or at the very least let her go. So I think that's and I think that's part of why everyone loves him. in the end because he's a he loves her. He has the capacity to love somebody that much, and he's really strong to be able to make those sacrifices. And he sees the bigger picture always. And it's the first chapter of this book is going to be brought back to the second book, and then something will make sense. This I didn't see that coming either. I didn't know that was also planned, and there's a surprise in
Hmm.
the second book that a lot of readers like. Oh, that's why that happened in the first.
Oh man, I can't wait. You're killing me
Everything
with all these. Yeah.
together, especially Lasura's identity and why he exists. So in the end, you can say that everyone is a chosen one in in this series. In a way, the Jari and Lasura are the one, the proclaimed one as the chosen ones. But everybody, I at first I thought Hashim was. I think Hashim is also because everything that happens that he does changes everything
Hmm.
uh, in the future. He pulls everyone together around him. He influences the decision of the Jari, who has the power to change stuff. So his existence, in a way, you cannot take a character out of Obsidian and have the plot be the same
Yeah.
because they're all connected. And that's why when I was querying it, everybody's like, you have to cut characters. Can you imagine?
No.
I said I have seven main characters, and it's like you are only allowed three because nobody can hold attention with seven
Hmm.
main characters. And I'm like, who do I cut?
Oh
I
man.
asked my readers, like, I'm being asked to cut down to three or five. Who do I cut? I can't because the whole story falls apart if you cut any of these seven who are actually all chosen ones.
Oh, I'm glad you didn't do that. I had a comment. I'm going to mispronounce Simiko. Sorry. I love the Marathi. I loved Marathi so much. Were there any inspirations for the character? He gave me some Reinhardt vibes.
Ah, you caught me there. Yes. I love Reinhardt. I love him. I tell everybody that Legends of Galactic Heroes is the anime to end all. It's
Hmm.
probably the best, not one of the best, the best thing I've consumed, the best story I've consumed. It's an epic, um, an epic space opera anime, and I usually hate animes, and I've watched like 190 episodes of it. It's
Oh.
really long, and a part of it is for Reinhardt as well because he is this amazing leader that you don't see often. So yes, in a way, I see him in Reinhardt's image
Hmm.
a little bit. Well, not a little bit, quite a lot. Yeah, yeah, because you don't see a leader like that often if you watch the show. I think that it's just funny because yeah, I oh wow. And very few people have watched that anime because it's so long and it's so old,
Hmm.
and so probably that's why nobody saw it, nobody knows. But people who've seen it probably are gonna see some resemblance. Yeah,
What's the name of the anime so I can go watch it now?
it's called Legend of Galactic Heroes. Huge, huge cast. There are two versions out. One is the older one. I watched the older one. I didn't like the designs on the characters on the newer ones. It's pretty much like Obsidian.
Hmm.
It's about the. It's very political. I I would call it Star Wars, the adult version, the real
Hmm.
adult version of Star Wars with politics really thrown in, and a lot of the conflicts are done on the table, not out there in the battlefields. And there are different couples and relationships going on. the leader Reinhardt is like Muradi. They're the opposite sides of the war, where both leaders are great, pretty similar in theme. Yeah, because
Hmm.
I love that anime, and I wanted to write something like that as well. But I don't think a lot of people have read this manga by Tamura Yumi Sensei. That's Legend of Basara. That is actually the main inspiration for me to write Obsidian. That is probably the best shit show of humanity I've read. Yeah, huge cast as well, and it's all about people who has been misunderstood, and the story is it's really cool. Yeah, it's also a really famous manga back then, but that is also my big inspiration for Obsidian.
Hmm. No, I was watch that now. Yeah. Great question. Yeah. Good catch.
Good
And
catch. I feel caught.
yeah. Busted.
But they're a bit different. They're different in many ways. But yeah, I
Yeah.
see a lot of Reinhardts and Muradi.
So, and I want to respect your time. I know we're coming up on 2 hours, and the time always flies whenever we start talking. But I want to really thank you for coming by, and I want to call dibs on the second book because I want to come and chat with you about the second book. So I'm calling dibs on the second book.
Yeah, I hope that's finished soon. I'm trying.
No, yeah, when it's done, I know it's there's a lot going on. So when it's ready, it's ready. But you know, want to yeah, because especially you've dropped a lot of bombs on us tonight. So I want to yeah, I'm excited to see what you have in store for us in book two.
So I'm really glad you enjoyed the book. Apparently, and
Yeah,
I love being quoted. I'm really I really appreciated that because that was one of the things I wanted to accomplish to write a book that can be quoted
all right,
in several places. Um, yeah. So
yeah,
wow, thank
yeah,
you, Tyler.
yeah. Tyler says, "Thank you, Faye. My book of the year so far." Yeah,
Thank you, ขอบคุณค่ะ
I was trying to talk Tyler into joining us, but I think he's working tonight. So next time,
Next time, book
yeah,
two.
book two, we'll get Tyler. Yeah. But cool. I want to thank you again. I really, really appreciate. I know you're busy, have a lot going on, and the time difference. It's the next day for you, so you're talking to me from the future, and I'm still from the past. So
It's always cool when I hear that. Somebody asked me a while back, what's it like tomorrow? That was a really cool thing to point out, which is kind of true.
yeah. So we know the world doesn't end tomorrow morning, so we're good. Yeah,
That's a good point.
yeah.
No, but thank you so much for the opportunity. I really had fun. I love talking to my readers. Yeah, and I hope to do this in book two as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna hold you to that. So I'll be bugging you. So cool. Well, thanks again, and thanks everyone who came by to chat and to bring up the Reinhard vibes comment. That was a good catch.
Yeah, watch that space opera. It will change your life.
Hmm.
It probably has changed everyone's life, as I've recommended. You will write differently as well.
Huh. Oh, I'll have to go watch it now. Yeah. But cool. Thanks again. Thanks everybody for coming by to chat all
You
things Obsidian.
okay? Thank you, ขอบคุณค่ะ
All right. See you for book two.
See you in book two.